Okay, Yoly, very serious question.
Yeah?
How much of a crime would it be to visit Spain without seeing Cadiz?
Unforgivable. I would never forgive someone that does that.
You see, this city deep in the southwest of Spain on this impossibly small spit of land is the most magical city in Spain, according to me.
And to me.
And I suggested to Yoly, actually, just after Lucia was born, that we move here for 6 months.
And I chickened out. I think it was the hormones.
I'm going to take you on a walking tour to show you my favorite parts of Cadiz, show you the culture, the history, show you why you need to come here, what to do when you are here, and why maybe you should move here for 6 months.
And I'll be joining you somewhere, sometime in between Lucia's naps.
All right, Venga, let's go. Cadiz is one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in Western Europe. It was founded by Phoenician traders from what is now Lebanon over 3,000 years ago. And we kick off in El Pópulo, this city's oldest and one of its most charming neighborhoods. It just blows my mind to think that this neighborhood, this little spot of land, has been continually inhabited for over 3,000 years, with different buildings, of course. But that's what I love about Cadiz. The history here is so compact, it's so dense, there are so many layers in such a small little piece of land, if you know where to look. For example, these paving stones down here are actually river stones from the Americas. They were ballast on the galleons coming back from the New World. And then once they got them here, they're like, well, we might as well use them. So they were used to pave the streets in the Pópulo. So the minute you walk into El Pópulo, you're going to see this mansion behind me, La Casa del Almirante. It was an important trader, merchant's house back in the day. And ever since I've been coming to Cadiz, it's always been in this sort of state of disrepair. There was a talk of it becoming a hotel for a while, but that hasn't happened. And there's almost a sense that Cadiz has so much history that it can't keep up, it can't keep it in check. And all these historic buildings are being beaten by the weather that comes off the Atlantic. So it's a challenge to keep these buildings kind of in a state of good repair. And for better or worse, what that does mean is these historic parts of Cadiz have this sort of gritty authenticity to them. Cadiz stretched its legs during the Roman Empire, and in 49 BC, Julius Caesar granted Roman citizenship to the city's inhabitants. And in 1981, tucked away inside the Pópulo neighborhood, archaeologists discovered one of the largest and oldest Roman theaters to have been unearthed to date. And to show you how important Cadiz was in the Roman Empire, there is an inscription on a few rows in the Colosseum where it shows that there were seats set aside for people from Cadiz. Gaditanos, people from Cadiz, were such important traders in the empire that they had their own special seats in the Colosseum in Rome. So the theatre was abandoned in the 4th century, no longer used, and then the Moors built a fortress on top of it, and then just the neighbourhood, El Pópulo, behind us grew up around it, and it got forgotten, totally forgotten, which is fascinating. I mean, this seated 10,000 people, and this is just a piece of it. It went much further that way, and then forgotten until the early 80s when it was discovered again. And something pretty amazing, there are people that live here with views of an ancient Roman theatre. This is their kitchen up here, or their toilet, I don't know. As if by divine intervention, the clouds parted as I headed to the cathedral. I'm not a big cathedral guy, but I love this shimmering building, built over 116 years at the hand of several architects, hence its hodgepodge style. So I'm always looking for fascinating details in a cathedral, and you know you're going to find them when there's a crypt. So let's descend into the cathedral's crypt. Saint Victoria was killed in the 4th century in Rome. She was a Roman Christian, and she was killed, martyred for not renouncing her faith. And in the 19th century, her body was brought here to the cathedral in Cadiz. You know, a relic like this would give weight and kudos to your cathedral. Pilgrims would come to see it. She was brought here. Her body was uncorrupted. Thus, they knew she was holy. She was covered in wax. There's this kind of waxy look on her face. Her eyes are a little bit open, and a vial of her blood was placed at her feet. So pretty fascinating and kind of spooky stuff, right? So there is something you need to know about Cadiz that is key to understanding this city. So when Columbus discovered the Americas, all this wealth started flowing into Spain, and it all flowed to Seville. That was where all the riches and all the goods came in. The boats sailed up the Guadalquivir River, the galleons, the Spanish galleons, and docked at Seville. But in the 18th century, the mouth of the Guadalquivir River silted up. There were sandbars, and the heavy galleons, heavy with cannons, couldn't get up to Seville. So suddenly Cadiz, right on the Atlantic, was in a prime spot, and it then became the Puerto de las Indias, the port for all the goods that were coming from the New World. And at that moment, this small, kind of tiny, insignificant somewhat town had this massive boom. People moved here, traders, merchants from all over the world to set up shop here. And suddenly Cadiz became a cosmopolitan European city, and a big city, an important city, needs a big cathedral, hence this place. Okay, so one thing you have to promise me that you'll do in Cadiz is you have to get above the rooftops, whether it's climbing the tower here in the cathedral or there's another tower we'll see later on. But the city is just this sweep of glimmering white against a usually blue sky, and then the Atlantic just stretching out to the horizon. It's absolutely gorgeous, and it's the one thing you got to do, promise me. Just north of the cathedral is Plaza San Juan de Dios, an elegant palm tree-lined square with an important history. So while this square is now full of palm trees and surrounded by cafes and bars, in the 18th century, this was in fact a marketplace. So this is where a lot of the goods were laid out that were hauled off the boats that had come in from the New World. It's where traders would trade all these exotic spices. And imagine walking through here in the 18th century and seeing and smelling things that people had never seen or smelt before in this bustling market. It must have been pretty incredible. And just off the square is the florid and ornate San Juan de Dios church. I remember coming to this church, San Juan de Dios, when we first came to Cadiz. It's just here off the square. And I remember being blown away by the intense Rococo decor and the smell of incense. It was all very mysterious. And I've always been impressed by the ability of Catholicism to really create drama in churches. You see the pain on Christ's face in the statues, the sorrow of Mary. It's very, very impressive. And actually today is a special day. It's the Saint's Day of San Juan de Dios. And they've brought in a relic, a piece of his arm bone for a special mass. But what truly represents Cadiz for me are its impossibly long, narrow streets lined with gorgeous, time-worn 18th century merchants' homes built during the city's boom times. So while this is normally a bustling town, Cadiz is quiet today. I think it's because last week was Carnival and everybody's sort of hungover and exhausted. But back in the 18th century, these streets would have been thick with traders and merchants trying to make their fortune from all over the world. You would have heard English, Spanish, French, Italian, Dutch, all the different languages spoken. And I just love these narrow streets with the merchants' homes from the 18th century lining them, all with this beautiful kind of faded elegance to them. It's very, very enchanting. And all the homes have a very similar structure to them. So the ground floor was where the merchants had their shops and sold their goods and did trade. The floor above was the offices. Then the floor above that was the living quarters. And then right at the top, you'll see much smaller, narrower, very low floor, and that was the servants' quarters. And so these wealthy merchants needed to keep an eye on the shipping that was coming from the Americas, laden with all the goods. So they built watchtowers on top of their homes, and now there are about 130 still in existence. And the tallest one, perhaps the most important one, is one you can visit. It's called Torre Tavira, and I'm climbing it now. I'm out of breath. Merchants used secret signals and mirrors from atop these towers to communicate with their ships that were coming in from the New World. And looking out at the water now, the Atlantic is empty of shipping from up here. But back in the mid-18th century, at the height of Cadiz kind of moment, the ocean here would have been full of hundreds of ships coming and going to and from the New World, laden with cargo every day. It would have been a completely different scene. From high above to deep below we go. In the 1980s, beneath the local puppet theatre, archaeologists discovered the 3,000-year-old remains of a Phoenician settlement, as well as a Roman fish salting factory. And so wandering through this site, you just realize that there are worlds beneath our feet as we walk around Cadiz. There are thousands of years of human inhabitation. And when you see cooking utensils and dead cats and ovens that were abandoned, it brings the ancient world to life. The ancient world is something that can feel so remote, but you can kind of sense these people's everyday lives 900 years before Christ, which is really special and unique and fascinating. As the sun begins to drop, I head for the historic sea walls and the lush gardens that run along the city's Atlantic coast.
Oi, and look who I found. Hello.
Do you come here often?
To the Alameda
Apodaca.
Apodaca. I always forget what this is called.
How are you?
I just kiss you in videos now.
I
just
know.
Meet Yoly and kiss.
We never kiss in real life.
Yeah, just say it for you guys. All right, Yoly, I'll let you explain this place because I'm losing my voice.
So we're in Alameda Apodaca, like James said. And
I think you said it.
Well, we have said it.
Yeah, it has been said.
It has been said by half of us.
Yeah.
We are walking along the Atlantic, and there's this beautiful garden, lovely fountains and statues.
This is a great spot to meet your loved one, your lover. Husband, you know.
Got sun in my eye.
Should we keep walking around the Atlantic, the sea walls? Because this is a beautiful spot.
Sounds good,
Very
yeah.
lush
I'm
and
sticking
gorgeous.
with you for a little bit.
Yoly, the minute you arrived back in the video, everything's gotten a little bit destabilized. I would say destabilized,
Yeah,
more
sorry,
fun.
sorry.
More fun. So did you know, Yoly, that Columbus left for his third and fourth voyages from here?
Right here?
Not right this
More or less.
bit here, but
This bit.
Cadiz. You know that?
No, I didn't know actually. I knew about Palos de la Frontera, the first one, right?
Third and fourth. Not sure about the second.
I'll tell you what I'm feeling, not having to wear a mask all the time outside, and that's smells, obviously, returning, It was a big part of traveling for me before, and it totally disappeared. I mean, altogether with traveling.
Totally.
With COVID.
Yeah, and some people lost smell with COVID as well, so
Exactly,
a
a whole thing.
whole
with,
smell issue. So Yoly, did you know this is an 100-year-old Australian fig tree behind us?
Oh wow.
But
Just like ours at home,
yeah,
only smaller.
and it's not Australian. But I have something even better for you
What is
in the
it?
next park.
Oh,
Should we go there?
exciting.
It's a surprise. So here's the thing, Yoly.
Uh-huh.
Somewhere in the Parque Genovés,
Yeah.
somewhere in all of here is
I'm getting dizzy.
a Pahudakawa tree, the national tree of New
How
Zealand.
exciting, where is it?
Here in Cadiz, somewhere in this park, I have no idea where.
Do
But
we have to find it now,
you have
before
to find
having
it.
dinner?
You have to find it. I'll be sitting here.
Ah, okay.
You and Lucia look for it. Starting with the map, right?
Yeah, well, of course.
It's not called, well, what is the Latin name for
well, that's the
Pahudakawa?
thing.
That's the Maori name.
Metrosideros excelsa, apparently. It has like red flowers, no?
No. Well, I don't think it's that. I think it's this. Number 3. There it is.
Number 3. And where are we?
So it's over there, I think.
I don't know whether I'm able to recognize it without if it's not in bloom.
This whole idea of finding
Yeah.
this tree has sort of backfired. Now I look like an idiot who doesn't find the tree.
The
This is
leaf.
it. We think this might be it. We're going to New Zealand next week, so this is special. Touching a piece of my country.
So did I accomplish the mission?
Unclear. Let's keep walking.
Further along the coast lies the Santa Catalina Castle, a strapping, impenetrable 17th century star-shaped fortress built into the rocks. So Cadiz, exposed right here on the Atlantic and at the entry point to the Mediterranean, was a really popular spot for raids. Pirates would raid the city. In 1587, Francis Drake sacked the city, and in 1596, the English and the Dutch completely sacked the city, and Philip II, the king at the time, had had enough, and so he ordered for this fort to be built to protect Cadiz from all these invaders. And interestingly, in the 18th century, the fortress was turned into a military prison, and here around 300 Jehovah's Witnesses were imprisoned because they were conscientious objectors to the idea of military service, and also members of the coup d'etat, the attempted coup d'etat against the Spanish government in 1981, were also imprisoned here. So I'm not a beach guy at all, but here, La Caleta,
I can testify.
this urban beach is like the heart of Cadiz, right?
Yeah.
You'll see locals here at 9 a.m. walking through the city with their beach chairs to set up, to be here all day.
Everything is happening here, everyone is here, you know. Even if you're listening to a certain style of flamenco called alegrías, you might hear sometimes La Caleta being mentioned,
Yeah.
you know, by some flamenco aficionado.
And perhaps a little less culturally significant, or maybe not, depends on your taste in movies. This is where Halle Berry made that famous walk ashore in that very famous bikini to meet Pierce Brosnan in that Bond film. I don't remember which Bond film it was. Apparently it was winter and it was very, very cold. Right now the beach is kind of quiet and empty because, you know, it's March, but come summer, all day. People spend all day here. That is my idea of a worst nightmare. Clearly, I'm not worthy of being a Gaditano. We wind into La Viña, a boisterous fisherman's barrio that got its name, the vineyard, from the fact that long ago grapevines covered these lands. So I love walking up this main street in La Viña, Calle Virgen de la Palma. It's got the palm trees down both sides, these beautiful colored buildings, the church right up the end with the neighbourhood virgin there. You can literally see her from, if the doors are open, from the end of the street. It's really quiet right now. Come 8:30 when a lot of the taverns open in Cadiz, this street at night is just bustling with terraces and bars serving pescadito frito, fried fish. It's a wonderful place to come out in the evening. Not so much a wonderful place to live on a first floor apartment up here, I suspect. So when the earthquake happened in Lisbon in 1755, the massive earthquake, there was tsunamis right across the Atlantic coast. And a tsunami came, a couple of them, and just washed the water right up through this street and through the neighborhood. And you can see up here, this is how high the water level got. So supposedly, actually not many people died because they all climbed up onto the top of their roofs, and then finally the waters only receded, so they say in local lore, when the Virgen de la Palma was brought out of the church and paraded through the streets. I'm not quite sure how that works because they would have had to put her on a boat, but you get the idea. Once the Virgin came out, the waters went down. But what I love most about this city is the light. And as the sun sinks, Cadiz is washed in a soft pink glow. And it always gets me as locals and tourists line La Caleta and the sea walls and clap the moment the sun drops behind the Atlantic waves. So, Yoly, have you changed your mind? Can we move to Cadiz?
Don't know yet. I need to check with my coach, maybe.
Your coach?
Yeah.
I didn't know Yoly had a coach. Anyway, you still have time to decide because tomorrow we start shooting the food video. We'll be eating our way through Cadiz over like 2.5 days. If you want to watch that video, click here. It'll be appearing about 2 weeks after this video comes out. We'll see you over there as we eat our way through this beautiful city. All right, hasta luego. See you in Spain. Ciao. And if you want a little behind the scenes of what it's like to film in the rain, there it is.
Here we are, the four creatures.